How about my sound? Is my sound doing a little better now? Sound level's good? There's always technical problems when you break down your setup. How about my sound? Is my sound doing a little better now? Okay. Good. Okay. And then we had the echo going. Listen, so as I was saying, just got back from Sestock in Dublin, had a great time. Couldn't have had a better time in Dublin. Sestock was really interesting. Just wanted to take a few minutes before we introduce our guest. Our guest today is a little blanking on my thing here. Blanking on my name. Shoot. Is everything going to be this hard today? Maxence Paindavoine from Winning by Design, and going to have a really interesting conversation with him. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and I think it's more pertinent than ever. So what I want to just talk about really quickly before I get going here is a little bit of my experience at Sestock. So one thing it's clear is that these events are so important, getting together to meet people. Just unique opportunities. The other thing is that there was a lot of activity at the show. I didn't really see any slowdown from what I had seen previously at other shows. So it was very impressive. Third thing is that we do see there's a little bit of shift in mentality. Profitability, sustainable growth is more important than ever, and that's great because that ties into what we're talking about, what we're going to be talking about with Maxence Paindavoine today. So it was a really interesting time there. I think the other thing too was that it was very interesting to just see where the market was at in general. And then with that, this morning, I got up, and the first thing I saw in the news was this report on European SaaS funding down. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because when you first read this, it's kind of a negative number. So down 42%. 42% is a big number, of course. So we're kind of like, oh, wow, 42%. And but we need to look about what this really means. So just really quickly, we see that there's less money. Okay, so it's called out here in the chart. That's fine. Interestingly enough, one of my predictions was that there would be more early round financing. So we can see that there's more seed round and more Series A. So I don't necessarily think that it's a bad time to start a company at all, or to work on an early company. Unicorns are down. Okay, but unicorns aren't the only size. That's late round thing, and that's really where the big investor payoff there is there. That doesn't necessarily mean the health of the ecosystem is taking a big dent. I think the final thing is that what has changed in the marketplace is, and what I really saw, one of the themes I really saw is that investors are doing more due diligence than ever, and especially on the financial side. You know, they've always looked closely at who your company is composed of, who the leaders are, but the founders, but the financials are increasingly important. And I think that goes back to, how do you create great sustainable growth? And that leads a little bit to our conversation today with Winning by Design. So Winning by Design also has a blog. They run another website where they provide a lot of open source content on how to build a great reoccurring revenue business model. So the website is called The Science of Revenue. A lot of these ideas are taken from some of the best thinkers throughout the industry. And so really recommend that you take a look at their website. And they also have on their actual website, they have some really interesting content as well about these same things. And so one of the reasons why I thought it was important to have Winning by Design on is last year I was speaking to them, and they introduced me to the concept of the bow tie funnel. And I had never heard of that. And I thought it made amazing sense at the time. And I think it even makes more sense now. Um, so with that, hold on here. Uh, make sure that my guest, I can bring him in here. For some reason, it looks a little funny. Doesn't want to let me bring him in here. Hold on one second. Oh, that looks better. Okay, and with that, I want to bring in my guest. Thank you for your patience, Max. We're getting our I don't know how we could say that. Getting our feet wet still. I'm not exactly sure that. Welcome to the show, Max. Very good. Let me make sure. Your audio is on. Okay, let's try that. Welcome to the show one more time.
Hi, Steve.
Good.
Super happy to be here.
Great. And where are you at today?
I'm still in Dublin. I've just done the SaaS Talk conference as you did, and I'm staying one more day to enjoy the great weather and to catch up with friends because I was a Dubliner for a few years.
Okay. And you say great weather. Are you making a joke? Is the weather actually very nice in Dublin?
Actually, no. Yes, it is. I
It is.
mean, weather in Ireland is sunshine multiple times a day. So yes, by
Yeah.
definition, it will be sunny at one stage in the day.
If you don't like the weather, just wait 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Um, Great. Well, listen, very good. And uh, so, what was your experience? What was your takeaway at this SaaS talk? What did you see?
What I saw was mainly great human-to-human connection. I think that's really the takeaway. People are craving for those industry events, B2B Rocks, and SaaS Talk. All those conferences are back in full shape, and people are really wanting to meet in person. The serendipity of instant conversations, the impromptu deeper talks, and just catching up with your industry friends. That's really important.
Yeah, I think I always find it kind of rather ironic that in an industry that we're really data driven industry increasingly, but it still comes back to human contact and human relationships and we decide what we're going to buy sometimes just for gut feeling. It goes back to gut instinct. I mentioned the report earlier that investment was down 42%. You have a different view. You work with a lot more people, a lot more customers your clients are people who are trying to grow their business and grow their ARR. What are you seeing? What are your takeaways?
So for me, if you're a SaaS founder, if you're in a startup or a scale up, what's important to know is that investors, VC, PEs, still have a lot of money to spend. They've raised their funds and they're deploying these funds with a little bit more time, which suits the market. On the one side, the due diligence is taking longer. Last year, they were not doing any due diligence because it was the race to who is blindly betting on the new project, which honestly is not sustainable. Now they're taking the time to look at the metrics. What are your key metrics when you're at a seed round? What are your key metrics when you're preparing a Series A, a Series B? It takes much more time. And as well as you could say that the valuations are down, meaning that the founders are not, for the moment, willing to get funding at a certain rate. But yes, the industry in itself is still growing. SaaS marketplaces, overall B2B recurring revenue is a microclimate that is still going to grow and to accelerate over the years to come. The gaps will be more important between those who can sell in gale force wind, I would say, and those who are stuck.
Yeah, I think the notion I got was that there was a flight to quality. So and flight to early. So they're looking for more early stage, more Series A, eventually Series B, but they're also looking for quality. And so that's going to slow everything down. And it's a really interesting time. But I saw every investor I talked with there I said, what do you focus on? And everyone, of course, it was a B2B show, but I said, do you do any B2C? Everyone's like, no, B2B, SaaS. That's our focus. And there wasn't anybody walking around with a sad look on their face or depressed or anything like that. They were still, there was as much energy as ever. So it's really interesting. I think the other thing that I noticed about the industry is, I think in a way, and we'll is that the talking with a lot of people is that I understood that the financials, providing the financial metrics, is increasingly important. They really want to be sure that your numbers and your KPIs are right before they invest. Have you seen anything like that?
Completely. Now is the time where teams, founders, investors are aligning on more sustainable metrics, and that's a great thing to see. The way I would summarize this is, if you're not looking to acquire the best customers for your long-term growth, you're going to have difficulties with your market. You're going to have difficulties with your investors. So look into now what is sustainable growth at a micro level. It is trying to acquire and develop on the longer term your best customers. So the notion of long-term value and how can you bring the full potential of a customer through repeat business and demonstrated impact is really the focus of any go-to-market team, but as well any chief revenue officer, any chief financial officer, and the boardroom. Yeah. So it's a really good alignment on what we can call sustainable growth, which Jacko in an internal meeting yesterday was reminding that it was a notion we introduced as early as SaaS Stock 2019, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. What you guys, when I learned what you guys were talking about last year, it struck me as, like so many things, just common sense. It's so obvious, but I had never heard of the concept, and I think a lot of people, even this time, I actually stole some of your language and was talking about this at SaaS Talk, and a lot of people were like, "Yeah, that makes sense." I mean, one of the things I mentioned is when you start with product design, have an idea on product design so that on the back end, there's a way to upsell and cross-sell. And so that once you engage those customers, that funnel is always widening out on the back end. But I don't want to steal too much of what you talk about today, so I'll stop there. Max, could you give us before, I think I did a bit of a disservice, real quickly, everybody who just joined. My name is Stephen Lurie. This is B2B Rocks live stream, and we're with Max Paindavoine of Winning by Design. Max, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to be managing director at Winning by Design, a little bit about your past, and maybe tell us a little bit about Winning by Design?
Yeah, perfect. And it's a good intro to my link with B2B Rocks and how I came to work for Winning by Design. So my name is Max Paindavoine. I've lived 6 years in Australia, 4 years in Dublin. I've been back to Paris for 3 years. And I was previously a freelancer helping French startups with their strategic processes, mostly marketing and sales processes. And I had a book with me that I use all the time to actually work with those companies. And this book was Blueprints for a SaaS Sales Organization, which was written by Jacko van der Kooi. And that's how I came about Winning by Design. In September 2019, I was at B2B Rocks in Station F. And I went to a speaker note from Andy Farquharson from Winning by Design. And after his session, I went to him and I said, "Love the book. It changed my life. I'm a freelancer thanks to to you guys. And by the way, Jacko is bold, you're bold, I'm bold. If you need someone to launch France, I'm your man. And a few months later, I was January 2020, I was launching the subsidiary of Winning by Design France, and I haven't stopped since. So thanks to B2B Rocks for making that connection happen. Again, a face-to-face human connection that started a fantastic adventure.
Yeah, it's funny. That's a great story. And where was Winning by Design? Where were they founded, or how did they start?
So it was funded. It's a Dutch founded venture. Jacko is Dutch, even if it is lived in California for 20 years. Dominic Levin, our fearful CEO, is Dutch, and it is mainly operating in US and Europe. And it's been doing so for the past 7 or 8 years. And now we are 140 experts, managing directors, trainers, coach across the globe. And we've worked with, I'd say, maybe 800,000 companies only in B2B recurring revenue, which makes us probably a little bit different from the classic management consulting companies like McKinsey, BCG, and so on. And we go much further down into implementation. Once we have done our go-to-market diagnosis, once we have redesigned the strategic processes, we go into implementation in the CRM, in the team, and we're here for the long-term change, which will only stop when we see behavioral change with the SDRs, AEs, CSMs, sales managers, and see impact. So we apply our own principles, which is all around measured, demonstrated impact of any product.
What as an organization, when can you guys have the most impact? When do you normally engage with companies, and when does it have the most impact for them?
It's a very good question, because there's two ways of seeing this. How I summarize how we worked with startups and scale-ups is that we are a little bit the Robin Hood of tech, as in we give a lot to startups, and then we set big missions and big goals with startups. So where we have the most impact is really post Series B, when it's an urge to switch from the star culture to the process-driven culture, when there's an urge to know what works, what scales well, and there's an urge as well to have a science-based approach to the full funnel. And when I say the full funnel, I need to introduce the bow tie, which is the classic funnel flipped on its side. So I'm going to draw this here. You've got the classic funnel of acquisition, so awareness, education, selection. But we say that in B2B recurring revenue, it's only half of the story, because once you have committed on a journey, you have the onboarding, the usage, and then the expansion. And obviously, for B2B recurring revenue, this is this right side of the bow tie that is important, and showing impact of your solution is really what is going to guarantee your recurring revenue.
Yeah, I think I just hold on, just from an investor standpoint too, because you wrote I over there too. I mean, what you realize is that you if you're investing in a company and their funnel executing, they're getting people to make decisions and buy in, and then they're expanding out there. You've invested in a war machine. I mean, they've got great processes, and they understood how to put their customer first, and they're delivering, and people are seeing that enough so that they trust them to let them expand the account outwards. So I think that's, and I think this is always, I mean, for our industry, this is the end goal. I mean, this is really a strong thing. But I think increasingly, given the headwinds we've been seeing right now, and this is one of the things I did see at SaaS Stock, which was everybody was focused on acquisition, like how do we go get more leads. I didn't hear anyone talking about the back end of the funnel. People were talking about onboarding, but not really about like expansion and what that means as a company. So, um,
I've got an advice on this,
yeah,
and it works for startups, it works for scale-ups, we really love to open our content, or books, or videos, or blueprints for startups to get those principled early in their organization. Sometimes, they don't need the lengthy playbooks because they are a two-man band, or just 5 or 10 people. But applying the principle of impact, customer first, is very important. So I would ask our audience to do one thing: just revisit your existing customers. You may have 5, 10, 50 customers. Go back to them, and with the change in weather conditions, ask the same question. Okay, why did you buy us? And for what impact did you buy us in the first place? And why are you still paying us every month, or every year? And for which demonstrated impact do you still buy us? This is the changing, data, granular feedback that you constantly want to survey your existing customers with, in order to be able to, update what impact means to your customers, and be able to attract new lookalike customers in acquisition. So not only you are checking the health of your relationship with your customer, which is less based on satisfaction, are you happy or not, but do I have a demonstrated impact of my solution? You can therefore, make sure that you have a long-term relationship that can expand, and as well, you're ready to tell the story of existing impact to other people who might have the same situation, pain, and willingness to impact their business with your solution. So I'd say when the crisis hit, yes, focusing more on your customers and why they're buying you is the really first very, very good reflex that can feed marketing, can feed sales, and obviously customer success.
yeah. One of the things I was talking with a founder there about, we were talking about the dangers of chasing revenue at the cost of customer fit.
Yeah.
And so you can go sign someone and get a deal, and have a bad customer fit, and they don't see impact. And so, do you see that? Is that a common theme that you see?
Um, y- y- Not with our sales methodology, not with our principles,
Right.
because we are basically a machine for the salespeople to forget the product and to qualify based on a customer centricity. So if we teach them how to sell what is at stake,
Hmm.
how to sell what is most important for the customer, their business, their situation, and not talk about the product before there's a fit in terms of do you have an urgency to solve this problem? Do you have an urgency to have this impact? And then talk about features linked to this impact. So yes, in theory, you could have less and less people selling based on other methods than just a full customer centricity, which is the way to have a long-term business flowing and being profitable.
I think I think I guess I was maybe thinking of companies that were a little earlier on the processes side. By the time you get to Series B, you probably figured out your ICP and you're starting to
Oh
have
yeah,
pretty good success. And have you
definitely.
so what the companies you work with? What are we talk about causes of success, but also we talk about correlations. What do you see companies that get to Series B and raise a good round? When I say good amount, I mean a good valuation from significant investors who are known investors who have their own brand. What are the correlations you see of those companies? What are those companies getting right? I mean, what are the like the check boxes?
Um, One key thing you need to have in when you've raised the Series B is your go-to market fit. So it means that you need to have a demonstrated data-driven way of showing that there's a scale happening at least with one segment.
Mm-hmm.
And investors can see that from your sales process, your ICP, your rate of churn, your long-term value. From a unit economics perspective, you're attracting the right customers. They're happy. They're seeing impact, and this lasts for a healthy number of quarters. What Series B startups need to get even better is how not to spread themselves too thin with too many objectives. And that's where, sometimes investors can be a little bit schizophrenic because they are asking all at the same time. They're asking that a first go-to-market fit be super proven, super data-driven, and super square. And at the same time, they want to test the potential for internationalization beyond Europe, in the US. What about the PLG motion? What about the enterprise motion? And that's where usually we come in and we calm down, the too many ambitions to say, okay, if you spread yourself too thin across too many territories, too many battles, you will not be able to raise another fund. And this will be bad for your investors, existing and future. So usually my question to a Series A startup and Series B young startup is, okay, how many ACVs, annual contract values, do you have? Are they very, very different? And how many segments and markets are you working on? And if I have an answer which have too many multiples, that's not a good sign, and they need to refocus.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about product roadmap, and one of the things I was mentioning the founder that I was speaking with, and we were talking about product roadmap, and I was saying bad customers. If you're trying to reach someone who's maybe not a great fit for your company, sometimes what they'll do, and this happens often if it's like a big unicorn company, which is they'll ask you to change your product roadmap. And if you start doing that too often and then you don't close those deals, you confuse your engineering team and you hurt morale and you spread yourself out too much. But it's kind of the same thing with investors, which is investors can say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. So you have your product roadmap, and these shouldn't be things you should do. No, should be things that you've committed to doing. And same thing with, I guess, more and more listening to you, I'm thinking like we need an investor roadmap and need to say, hey, okay, we hear you, but that's for Q2 or that's for Q3. We're not going to go do that right now because we're focused on these things. So I guess just provide an investor roadmap and say, this is what we're going to do and when and why. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I must say, more and more education is coming to the B2B recurring revenue space, to the SaaS space, to the fintech and marketplaces. So investors, founders, startup teams are starting to get really educated on what metrics are important. They, I think, were lacking a little bit more of enablement on the right side of the bow tie. So, we talk a lot about sales methodologies, and there's a lot of share of voice for acquisition. But what we have seen is that the right side of the bow tie, when the deal is done and when you still need to bring recurring impact month over month, quarter over quarter, there's much less methodologies. And so what we've done in the recent weeks is open our IP, put to every startup on the marketplace the possibility to download very, very specific blueprints for onboarding, usage, expansion, adding a layer of very strong concepts such as, impact, critical events, and other elements that help the team speak the same language. And that's probably what's most important, that if you've got customer success in mind from day one, you're able to speak and to have processes that actually reflect this on a day-to-day basis. So that's the customer success operating model that we have downloaded to everyone. Maybe we can share a link to this. It's on our website if you want to do this.
Let me
You
let
are
me
going to
let
yeah.
me let me bring you in here so you can share. You can share from your desktop, and we should be able to see what you're showing from your
Oh
desktop.
no, I think so. No, I don't want to get into the details
Okay.
because otherwise I get sidetracked and I spend too much time. But people can ask me for one-on-one sessions on that. The overall message is that the customer success team have been suffering from a lack of methodologies and as well not being recognized as the true revenue bringers of a recurring business. So now we've got the possibility to have a proactive customer success and account management team who actually do the right things to measure impact, celebrate impact, and have really, really specific blueprints to help the team getting educated and write the right processes for that. So I'm super proud of that effort. It's been a long journey to get to that level of clarity in the slides, level of efficiency. Hundreds of projects are behind what's been released, and at least from the US perspective, because the crisis is probably more felt over there. It was an overwhelming positive reception of this open source content. So very proud of Winning by Design on this.
The website again. I put the website up there. It's the Science of Revenue.
Yeah, there's also the winningbydesign.com website.
Yeah, they're both
Um,
they're both up here in the chat. So I've spent a considerable amount of time in both places. You know, just I'm kind of curious because you work with companies. Do you ever work? I would be interested to see if investors ever ask you to look at people's companies and their products and say that there is no back end fit. There is no way of expanding out the revenue. Do you ever look at a company and say, as far as their product goes, there's not much expansion they can do. There's not much upsell or cross selling. There's nowhere to go from here. Is that the case, or can nearly anybody find a way to grow their product? And I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
are very rare. Very rarely do you see. So we tend to have our consultants, our trainers deployed on scale ups, and usually they're way past product market fit. They have proven one or two go to market. And are scaling those, and usually yes, there are multiple ways to expand the relationship, either when they are talking to an enterprise account and have ways to cross sell, or yes, upsell with the constant additional feature that different release can bring. So it's very rare that a company get funded on something else than the product vision of the team, either founders or product team. And yes, you need to have a long-term view to get more expansion and more features out of your existing feature use out of your existing customers. So it's very rare that you say, okay, just try and acquire more customers, because these will not the existing will not bring additional collaboration.
I'm just wondering if, like, from a product fit, like if people start from day one thinking about, because if you're not aware of the back end of the funnel, maybe you're not thinking about like how you're going to grow your product. You're just thinking about your initial product. Okay, here's product A plus, product A plus plus that we're going to charge a little bit more for, but we're not thinking about necessarily product B or product C that we might be able to bolt on. So
Yeah, so I was I was with my great colleague KD on Monday morning for a session with startups, mostly founders, 60, 70 of them. And he planted a seed. He said, you're not looking for product market fit, you're looking for problem market fit, and always be looking for validating your assumptions live with someone related to their problem. And he challenged them to do one thing. He said, okay, if you've got, how many in the room have less than 5 customers? And a couple of hand raised, and he told them, look, find 50 of your potential customers, call them and say, I'm researching on the market. I just want to have a conversation with you about a potential product. I promise you I won't sell you anything, but I want to validate with you my assumptions about the problem you're living and if it's important for you.
Yeah.
And do those 50 calls, you'll have 20 answers and you'll get fantastic insights on your problem market fit. Because what's important when you're a founder is that you go beyond the features, you go beyond your technicalities to be ready to see if the problem you're solving is important at a certain stage, important for a certain type of customers, and be from the get-go customer centric.
Yeah, I think the key is right now also important enough. I mean, a little bit like my cell phone, my mobile phone, I can only have so many applications that I'm going to use on a given day on my phone. And I think
Yeah.
there's a concept also of like SaaS overload. So what are you doing? Are you doing something that's important enough that you're going to be, or is as discrete on the background that it's not going to it's going to make my life better without taking up any more of my time? So that's a really interesting concept. What did you take away? What were your big takeaways from SaaS Stock? What were some of the things you learned there? I mean, I think these, for me, that what I like about these is I always get new ideas. And so,
Yeah.
what were some ideas that you picked up on, and some things that got you excited and make you feel young again?
So, from a pure human perspective, I was really, really inspired with people recognizing, winning by design and saying, "Oh my God, guys, you're helping us so much." And that was pure, selfish energy and positive energy. And I'm very proud of how we've seed the startup scene for so long, and it's really really good to have a live recognition of this day-to-day work. The second thing is that it was a great reset for SaaS Stock. I think next year is going to be even better because people are getting reused to meeting and preparing what's next and so on. What I'm going to say is that when I compare Sifted London a couple of weeks ago to SaaS Stock, it was very interesting to see that the positive energy was much more in Dublin. The willingness to drive the entrepreneurship was very much in Dublin. London was a little bit more or a lot more doom and gloom, but I must recognize that in terms of thought leadership, in Sifted, I could see a second day much more into sustainability, much more into
Financial sustainability or
no, green,
green? So okay.
yes. Inclusivity, female founders, and it was very inspiring to see, a second day where you didn't have your classic, white male founders on stage. We had a little bit of this in SaaS Stock on stage with the two founders of Chili Piper. who gave a keynote speech which was very vulnerable, very centered around what is important for your team, your company. They had raised 30 million and said to their investors, we are giving 1 million on a foundation to combat violence. And that was just before the war in Ukraine broke up. So I'm wishing for the SaaS industry to grow more into what really matters, because next to the digital transformation is a much bigger transformation about sustainable and sustainability. The fastest growing scale-ups and startups in Europe are now green tech.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go away. So I'm wishing for this transition to be even more pregnant for next year.
Yeah, that's great. I think the great thing is that SaaS and underlying SaaS, we have subscription like business model,
Yeah,
and the subscription business model fits perfectly with kind of the reoccurring reuse reduction business model,
absolutely.
these circular business models. And they're I know that as far as energy startups, like the two of the hottest sectors are like security and energy.
Yeah,
And there's, I came from an IoT background, SaaS background, and there's so much to be done as far as energy and water with IoT and how we can use data. And I think we all feel like you, even, whatever we believe in, I think no one can argue that it's better to do more with less.
exactly.
And that's something that we should all be working on. That's good to hear.
Yeah, and I'm just going to take 2 minutes to show what exactly the transformation we're going through.
Please do.
I've got a friend who, did his, eco awakening. He's the CEO of a fire extinguisher company.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he's done his Fres du Climat and workshops, but now he's transforming his business from selling fire extinguisher to fire extinguisher as a service. So all of a sudden, you've got something that is the monthly subscription SaaS logic applied to real world. He was selling stuff before, and now and pushed to be replacing those as quickly as possible. Now he's telling his team of salespeople how to completely change their mindset to be customer centric about the monthly subscription. And he owns the fire extinguisher, and now he's much more into a sustainable path. So I hope that people can understand now that this is going to be the case for every industry, everywhere. And yes, the monthly subscription mindset is going to invade the world the way software has eaten the world.
Yeah, let me just call that out. We did a webinar last week with Bill Work, which is a big subscription management company, and we were talking about this and how. And this is really interesting because the subscription model, of course, it started with magazines, but then in technology, this got going in technology in maybe late 1990s. Since it's spread out from there, and it's spreading into the four corners of the world economy, and every Fortune 500 or CAC 40 company around the world now is looking about how can we get subscription revenue. What's exciting about that is, yeah, okay, they're going to make more money. But also, for example, if you think about a single car, if you have 3 people using a single car, that's a much better use of resources.
Absolutely.
So it's more profitable for companies. It's fewer resources. It just makes a heck of a lot of sense throughout these things. And these are things that we're all concerned about. I really want to applaud also Chili Piper for giving 1 million of the 30 million investment. That takes a lot of courage to sit on your values like that. So bravo.
They're driven, so it's fantastic. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll have unlimited time for anybody who really wants to transform the business from a business model perspective. People were asking me, Max, how can I help you? I said, help me focus on the green tech more. If you've heard of a scale up in green tech who has some growth issues and growth pains with their sales team, their customer success team, send them to me, because the more we focus on the right businesses, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, I think I second everything you've said there, but I'd also add edutech.
Yeah,
I think education is a market that's ripe for disruption,
yeah,
just so that everyone knows what's happening in the United States. A lot of people in the United States are predicting the end of universities, at
yeah,
least the model we know currently, where we pay,
yeah.
a lot of money to go to schools. One, it's just not sustainable. People
Hmm.
really don't want to acquire 200,000 in debt to start their
Yeah,
lives.
yeah,
And then the other thing is that we think that there should be more open courseware, and
yeah.
and many institutions like Harvard, Stanford, University of California, Berkeley are putting open courseware up there. And so education is something we need. I mean, I think education is fundamentally linked to equality. It's linked to democracy. It's linked to developing our economies better. It's linked to developing human potential better. So, and even the motivation models we have for education, which is learn or we'll beat you, we can do better than that. So I think that's a great thing. One of the things, and I'd like your perspective on this. So I've been around tech now pretty much my whole adult life. And I went through the dot-com bust in the night. What was it, like 2002 maybe? Yeah, I think it was something like that. I can't even remember now. Maybe, yeah, right out. Okay, a long time ago. I think one of the things I'm impressed by, and I think, is the sophistication of our ecosystem. How sophisticated. You were talking about investors and people that are starting their businesses. Um, People's business models and their savvy is much further. But I think on the other hand, I think, like, thanks to people like you with the science of revenue, I think the sophistication, the bar is getting raised every day. Um, any thoughts on that, or?
So now what I'm mostly impressed with is how product-led growth, so small companies with two, three, four, five people can actually build a business, a sustainable business, whether through those darker or let's say gale force wind, with only a couple of people operating. There was in SaaStock a listing of 200 companies who have the biggest revenue per employee. And yes, they are 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 people companies growing very, very fast, because the software, their product is doing the sales and the marketing based on client satisfaction, based on word of mouth. And every business can think of how this is useful for natural growth and organic growth. So very impressed with this.
Yeah, that's funny. I spoke with two different founders, and both of them had no salespeople, and they weren't doing anything outbound whatsoever. Everything was inbound. Everything was driven by content and product. And so they were talking about the problems they solved, and basically how their product worked, and oh, no salespeople. The concept of selling didn't even exist in their organization. I mean, basically, they checked you for fit. If you fit, then they did a demo, and everything left from there. And I thought about that, and it's how great. And it's kind of funny, because when you go to sales school, they tell you, the first thing they tell you at sales school, they say it in a lot of different ways, but they tell you, don't sell, listen.
Yeah.
And yet I've listened to sales pitches over the last 5 years from a lot of senior salespeople who are still just straight ahead selling, pitching, and not doing enough listening. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So the product led part. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry.
Oh, and just on listening or selling. Each time I hear selling, I'm replacing by helping to buy. If you are helping your prospect to buy and taking a step back into, okay, why do you need this type of solution? And you include your solution into a larger bucket of your category, all of a sudden you are really focused on what matters for them, what is important, And yes, you're helping them buy, and you have an even more acute way of listening, because you're not pushing your product, because you're not saying we are the best or we can do better. You first listen to really help this person buy. And sometimes it's even better for your company because there's not a long-term fit, because they don't see what is at stake. They don't see, what could be done with a bigger ambition, to actually say, there's not a fit, but you can still go there and you will have what you are looking for. So yes, it's very inspiring to see younger generations not being taught that sales is a talk skill, but much more a listening skill. That's why I came back to sales with Winning by Design, because it is a muscle that begins with customer centricity, begins with techniques of listening, and the only moment where you've got ego is how do you frame the conversation? How have you done your research? How do you ask a couple of close-ended questions to ask the big open-ended question on their pain, and then empathize and go even further with what impact do you want to achieve? So very inspired with the younger generation, happy to learn, happy to practice, and not seeing the old traditional sales picture of someone who talks way more than their prospect.
I think the other thing is that good salespeople, and I know we say we shouldn't use this term, and here we are using it, but they're people who exercise empathy and
Yep.
exercise creativity. You've got to listen, like you said, listen, understand what their pain are, help them in some cases understand their, and then find a way creatively to get them to see a vision, see an alternative future. And if you're able to do that and they're able to get excited about that alternative vision on their own and start projecting, you've got a big win on your hands. Do you advise at all on revenue team compensation? Uh,
Uh, in general terms, not on specific terms, because this is really a specific commitment you make when you are advising on specific sales compensation. But yes, we make org design missions, and within that org design mission, we are advising on the general compensation plans, plus how this is going to scale with your growth model. So what we do is we define all roles very precisely. What's the input? What's the output? What are the skills related to each role? Marketing role, sales roles, CSM roles, managers. How does it translate into input and output for the actual sales engine? And how do you plan your capacity model to produce the right output? And outputs would be different for the marketing team. It could be marketing qualified leads. It could be meetings. Same for the teams. For the sales team, it could be obviously revenue, but also sales velocity and conversion rate. So all of this is basically the role of the chief revenue officer to stand in front of the board and to say, okay, we've got those bottom line objectives that are fixed by the business plan. Now my growth plan is all about people, metrics, and capacity plans, and how to get there. And yes, compensation is a big part of there, because you need to reward the right behavior as quickly as possible in order for your sales engine to be actually in line with your long-term goals. So it's very important to have, impact demonstration in mind for the customer success team, but even more for the sales team. A badly qualified customer coming to the funnel is not acceptable anymore, because it's actually have very detrimental consequences on the long-term value. So it's important to think of all this as a system, Go-to-market teams are composed of marketing, sales, customer success per segment.
Yeah.
And if you start modeling your growth per segment, per market, with pods of marketing, sales, and customer success, then you can apply all those principles and scale fast.
Yeah. The reason why I asked that is, when you want to attract talented people, you need to have a compensation model that's simple enough for them to understand and fits in their logic. So it's a question of talent acquisition. But then at the same time, like you were saying, rewarding good behavior, I think you need to incorporate things that are a little bit on the longer side. For example, a churn, customer satisfaction. The fact, I think these other aspects. And so I was just wondering how companies are balancing. I know I've spoken with a lot of sales VPs and people that work as revenue officers, and they say that compensation is one of the hardest things to model. Because, like you said, you've also got to take that to the board as well. So you're stuck between the board, the CEO, salespeople, short-term objectives, long-term objectives. It seems like it's quite a handful. So I was just kind of curious
Um,
about what your
yeah,
thoughts about
I'm
that.
going to take a very, very specific example of a conversation I had with a scale up, and the, the the topic was training, but it quickly derives with me pushing the C-suite to have a vision beyond training. And I told them, look, we're not selling training. You're not buying training. We are all focused on behavioral change for your sales team. How to monitor and celebrate behavioral change is with certification. Certification will be a client call recorded that your rep or your manager submits to a peer for them to check against a scorecard. Very, very scientific. Have you mastered this skill? And this is the grid to check that you've mastered the skill.
Mm.
So now, when we launch the Sales Academy, we want the chief executive officer to be launching the academy in saying, we want all of you guys to be certified with these skills within the next 6 months or 9 months if you would want a bigger runway. And there's going to be acceleration of compensation for the first who are the champions of those skills. Yes, it's going to be validated with the CFO because he needs this in his business plan and growth plan. And after some time, you will have less compensation if you're not certified with those skills. So it is a commitment for 2023 for the chief commercial officer to put the right means to an end, to have skills coaching, to have, the managers become stewards of coaching, and to have, yes, the C-suite aligned with what a bigger goal it is to launch an academy with something else than just go trainings and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I just today I was looking at LinkedIn, and I should have noted this down, but I saw someone had come up with an AI chatbot for sales training.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. And if we can actually put a face on that and make it someone talking in front of us, because I think you and I had a conversation about SDRs.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that I think one of the saddest things is when you call an organization and you get an SDR, it's often one of the least experienced people at the company, and they don't know much about the product, which is actually okay.
As long as they know a lot about impact and stories of existing customers of theirs.
That's right. You got to say, hey, this is 3 customers that was helped, and this is how we helped them. But if they're unable to even do that, then you're like, oh my gosh, why am I even on this phone call? So, as an outside organization, I'm really curious about this. One of the things I think that's challenging about working in technology, or any industry really, is when you're brought in as an outside organization, we have to deal with internal politics.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not wanted by everybody.
Yeah.
sometimes these people are powerful.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like Game of Thrones. It can be. I don't know if you had that experience, and any thoughts on navigating that?
Yes. The way to frame this is to think of emotional impact linked to the person and their job,
Yeah.
and rational impact linked to the company, and harder metrics, ROI metrics, cost metrics, and so on. And when you're in a complex setting where there's a lot of stakeholders, just remember that people, buy in projects based on emotions first and what's in it for them, and then post rationalize this. So again, your empathy, your ability to share a vision, your ability to show what's the path of best impact over time, your ability to push back on saying yes to everything and not having a consolidated customer success plan is your best your best friend. Where we don't cross a line is uh, um, going for specific impact linked to people. Yes, there are champions who will be promoted with the good work and so on, but we always put the company's best interest long term first. And that's a guiding principle, because otherwise you don't have a North Star and you're unable to please people for the sake of it. It's exactly like customer success. If you want a happy customer, you're being reactive. If you've got a demonstrated impact, you will be proactive and you will be driven, even if there's tough conversations. I much more prefer a grumpy customer knowing that I've brought impact to his or her organization than someone who says, "Oh, I'm super happy," but nothing happened. Because otherwise, you're at the mercy of if someone likes you or not, or if someone is seeing you as a threat or not.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on the point, the emotional thing. When in communication, which is I think the foundation for marketing and sales and all these things, the first thing they teach you is you got to think of the emotional impact of what you're communicating, and people buy into projects because they believe in it and because they think it's going to help advance whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah,
And so I think just listening to you while you were saying there, if you're talking with someone and he's reticent, you need to tell like, hey, here's some other companies we work for, and these people in a similar role to yours, this is how they benefited.
yeah,
And then if you can't get them aligned after that, then maybe you have a sociopath or a narcissist on your hands, and you're just in for a long, stormy relationship. But in most cases, they will come around,
absolutely.
and in many cases, they'll come around. It's I hope. I don't hope. I really want to have you back on because this is just a fascinating subject. Is there anything else that comes to mind that's been on top of mind for you recently that you've been thinking about quite a bit?
Um, No, for me, it's a great intro session. Just keep in mind that we have a lot of open source material. I'm happy to send, a couple of books via snail mail to people who want to discover either, the SaaS sales, the Blueprint for SaaS Sales organization book, and get ready to be wowed by a fantastic systemic vision of what could be sales as a science, but sales in a very customer-centric manner. So happy to help. That's our mantra, and yes, let's do this again. Maybe a deep dive into one project, one subject, revenue architecture, customer success, the notion of storytelling. There's many things to do, and maybe Laurent, Aurélien can be joined to do that as well.
That would be great. Just I wanted to call that out. So the book he mentioned is Blueprint for SaaS Sales Organization. If you do a search on the internet, you can find lots of different places to do that. their website where they have the open content, open source content on revenue modeling and customer success and a whole bunch of things is The Science of Revenue. I really suggest you spend time there. And of course, their website is Winning by Design. And if you go to winningbydesign.com/resources/books, you can find lots of extra reading there as well. Um, Ideas are just sharing ideas and getting ideas. I feel after this conversation, I just feel like there's not enough hours in the day. I want to go read. I'll spend some time on there. I just want to touch on one last thing about Ireland and Dublin. I think one of the reasons why I'm not sure Irish history is that much is richer than anyone else's, but they sure are great storytellers.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you listen to Irish and I think they're natural marketers because they almost start everything by telling a story.
Yeah.
And I think that's the really interesting characteristic of Irish. I think every culture, the French, you have your own special characteristics, but that was my first time in Ireland. And what I came away with is, boy, I really like the energy and gosh, they sure are great storytellers. And I guess they have a Celtic word, a crack, which is a good story or a good bit of fun, and they were quite a bit of fun. I'll be interested to see what happens at the next SaaS Talk, how the energy is. Thank you for your thoughts on what happened at Sifted and the difference between those shows. And we'll definitely be having you back on and Aurélien as well. And thank you so much.
Pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Okay, bye-bye.
Cheers.
Cheers. Super interesting guy. Really interesting guy to talk with. That's I think that's what I love most about our industry. I think the things I love most about our industry are the people you get to meet and share ideas with, and the ideas that spurs. I mean, I it's rare that I leave a conversation with someone who works anywhere in this industry without learning something new, and that's really great. Max, of course, is especially, because of experience, especially so really good. Just so you come back here really quickly, I just wanted to show you there a little bit. So here's what we were talking about the butterfly funnel. So awareness, education, selection, and you can see that they have content about this all the way through, how to educate, and these are things that so many SaaSes struggle with, especially if it's rare that as a company you start and you have your founders and everybody on your team, you have all the different skill sets that you might need. So just really interesting stuff. And then of course, they have their blog. There's tons of information on their blog. And then, of course, they've also open sourced all this information as well. But this is key reading. This is key reading for anybody that works in our industry, and they need to be familiar with these concepts because you're investors now. The more that you understand this nomenclature, the more that you understand these confidence or these different areas, the more confident you're going to make your investors. I think it's funny. When I first started out, I said, I wanted a CEO with sales and then marketing. And now I think CEOs have to wear and founders have to wear so many hats and be good at so many things. So just keep that in mind, like these resources. On that note, there's a lot of resources, open content resources as well on security. And if you are building a SaaS and you plan to go international and you plan to go big, you want to be one of those companies with 10 million ARR or 100 million ARR or like Twilio, close to 1 billion ARR. You need to be thinking about security from day one. You don't need to have it all baked in, but you need to be aware of the big issues with this. And so you need to be modeling your revenue. You need to be modeling security. Otherwise, I mean, if you're not modeling your revenue, if you're not finding customer fit early on, if you're not finding product fit, if you're not really hitting impact early on, you're going to pollute your sales funnel. You're going to pollute your business. You're going to create distaste in your customers' mouths, and as they leave you, they will poison the well. So just keep these thoughts in mind. Well, listen, thank you very much. I'm going to let you go for today. Really interesting guy. Next week, we have our guest for Thursday of next week. It is Dennis Potemkin. And Dennis Potemkin's a founder from Italy. And we're going to talk something really interesting about conditions and terms. Not a very sexy subject, but there's actually a lot there. So we're going to be talking about Dennis Potemkin on Thursday. We don't yet have our invitee for Tuesday, but we'll work on that. But we'll see you on Tuesday, and we promise we will have you something. We'll have something interesting to talk about on Tuesday, and an interesting guest for you on Tuesday. Thank you very much, and have a great day. And as they say on cartoons, that's all, folks.